time we meet, just to make sure there's an opportunity for discussion if people would like to do so. And we've already done 1 and 2. So today we'll do 3 and 4. Cindy will lead that discussion here in just a minute. And then Mick will give us some updates on things going on all WIAA and opportunities for Q&A as needed. So it shouldn't take too long. Without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and get amendment number 3 up. And our staff will work with Cindy on presenting amendment 3. I'm assuming you're going to want me to help with this, Cindy. So go ahead.
Actually, well, I think you should probably do it since we.
Okay, I'll be happy to sort of lead this gender identity amendment number 3 information. I think the biggest thing I just would want to share is this is part 2 of some gender identity work that was done. As you guys remember, a year ago, there was some time spent updating just basic language to be more inclusive and more up to date and in tune with what's going on around the nation in gender identity. And this amendment is really around when you as an athletic director are trying to find out the eligibility of a student athlete. Previously, when you would determine a gender identity student to be eligible, a member school could question that determination, and then that would result in a student having to have a hearing to basically justify their gender identity in front of a committee. Instead, the way that this new amendment would play out is if a school feels like you have, it really leaves the eligibility determination on the shoulders of an athletic director, which is consistent with all other eligibility practices. And if you were to determine the student to be ineligible, then the WIAA would step in and help with a committee to review that. But otherwise, your determination of eligibility is what would go forward. And if a school were to question that, they would use the process, the same process you would use if you question that any school has broken a rule within our handbook. They would do a rule violation process. So this is, that's really what the guts of this is all about. It takes out this appeal process that was here in the past and really leaves it up to the athletic director to make the determination. What happens if you determine a student to be ineligible? And it removes that one school can force a hearing for another school. So that's really the guts of it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Or Justin, if you have anything you want to add, feel free to do so. I don't know if Stacy's on the call or Jeff. So feel free to just chime in if there's something that I missed or something you want to add.
BJ, this is Jeff Lowell.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I would like to make sure that we remind folks is that one of the reviews of this particular amendment proposal was done through the lens of what is currently in state law, and to make sure that we're actually bringing WI rules into alignment and make sure we're in alignment with those state laws. And the belief of the Gender Identity Committee is that this proposed amendment would actually reduce exposure for any potential discrimination suit, because it ends up providing then one eligibility process for all students rather than having a separate eligibility process for a very specific group of students. So just really as you're looking at this and you're talking to your voters in your area of the state, if you have questions about it, you know, Stacy's on the call right now too. You can always call Stacy Ward. You can call me, you can call BJ. And we're happy to talk to those voters a little bit more about this.
And Russ Waterman also sat on the committee, so he's a good
Very
resource.
true. Yes, Russ as well.
Justin or Stacy, or any questions in the chat? I can't see the chat, so. Hearing none. Cindy,
Nothing in there, BJ. Sorry.
Okay. Cindy, I'll pass on to amendment 4 to you.
Okay, amendment number 4 would allow 1B schools and the smaller 2B schools to be able to utilize 8th graders in their high school program that are either from WIAA or a WIAA member feeder school based on some very specific situations. Either the program is not available at the middle level, or their participation numbers are at or below the minimums that are listed there, and league approval is required in all cases. I will say that based on some questions that came up during an earlier WASA Wednesday meeting, we did have the WIAA Executive Board approve an editorial change to add the definition of a feeder middle school, junior high in this section in Article 18.20. It has always been in the out of season portion in the handbook, but now it is also in here. So it specifies what students are considered to be in a feeder school that leading to that high school. So any questions or concerns about this one?
Hey, Cindy,
That also includes the 1As. Where's the 1As coming on that, Cindy?
There is, that's an amendment that's later in here. I believe it's number 6.
Okay.
That would open that provision for 1A schools. That amendment was submitted last year. It did get some support, but did not pass. The Caribou Trail League requested an experiment that would allow them 1A schools to utilize that same rule based on league support. The board did approve that for this school year. So if there are schools interested in it, it's not a school by school decision. Your league has to approve the experiment. And the caveat in that is that if an 8th grader is used on a varsity team, that team would not be eligible for postseason play. And I will clarify that during this year, that means any postseason play beyond your league culminating event.
Okay.
If your league has approved it for league play, then it's okay for your league event as well.
So the only thing I need to get is just get approval from league. I don't need to contact the WIAA.
Well, I need to be notified because I report to the board which leagues are utilizing it. So you do need to get approval from your league, and it should really be contacted by the league president or the spokesperson for the league acknowledging their approval. And I will say that several of the leagues that are utilizing that experiment are placing some additional restrictions, which they are allowed to do. So it's important that you talk that through with the league.
Okay. Yeah, the league has approved it. Okay, so just let you know, or the league let you know that we're having 8th graders participate in softball primarily.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Cindy,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Cindy, is the CTL the only league that is doing that this year?
No, SCAC.
No, there are, just a minute, let me pull that up. There are about 5 of them, and I just got a notice of one more yesterday. So there are a number of them that turned in their requests just in the last week. Now that things are resuming and they're checking on their actual number of participants. So there are, I believe there are 5, maybe 6 leagues now that have approved it.
Hey, Cindy, this is John. You and I already had a conversation about this, but I just kind of wanted to ask the question. On the rule 18.20.1, it says high schools. And my understanding from our conversation is that really is only referring to 1B and 2B schools. Am I correct in that understanding?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I guess my suggestion would be that perhaps you might consider where it says high schools, you might just put in 1B and 2B high schools to kind of clarify that. So I'm just kind of sharing that with you again, and I just wanted to make sure I understood it. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anything else on amendment 3 or 4 that anybody wants to chat about? Hearing none, I will hand it over to Mick to kind of give